Oh my goodness. Hey, hi, it's Mike. Did you know that Abe and Bridget and me are trying to make a movie right now? Yes, right dang now. It's called Papa Bear and tells the poignant and hilarious true story of the time my dad came out as a gay furry when I was 17. If you care about that at all, please head to seedandspark.com/fund/papa-bear to find out much more about the project, how you can be a part, and earn really cool rewards for helping us out. See you there. Here's your pod. Thanks so much. Carrie on my TV screen. All these bitches really mean.
True.
Girl, you're a woman now.
True.
Plug it up, plug it up. Pig's blood, pig's blood.
This should just be the podcast now.
It is.
Oh, man.
Welcome to Carrie.
Welcome.
It is a Carrie. It's Carrie Day here on Kings of King, where myself, Michael Swayman, my best pal Abe Epperson, break down anything ever adapted to film or television by the great late. I'll have to Google it. Stephen King. No, I know he's alive. And today,
he's still doing his political tweets. He's out there.
That's
on the
right.
Twitter sphere.
Very political. Talking about his dog, calling her Molly the Thing of Evil, I believe is his dog's name. He's a cute old horror man.
He's a cut up.
He's really cute for a billionaire.
Yeah.
Anyway, today we're starting with like the adaptation, because if you are a regular listener, you know I was out for a bit and we figured we'd get back going, like restart the engine with a big boom. It is the first ever Stephen King adaptation to film, 1976's Carrie. It's been remade twice since, but we're starting with the original. So the very first, like its success led to Hollywood going, we're going to adapt everything this guy ever writes for the rest of time. So this was a big deal for him. And we're going to get into it. Abe, talk now. For a while.
Yes. I'm a big fan of this movie.
Oh, good.
The screenplay is tight, and I like stories leading to inevitable like crashes or landings, as the case may be. It's like the same structure of movies I know you like. Like when I think of like Whiplash or Ex Machina, I actually think that maybe knowingly, maybe unknowingly, they kind of have some service to Carrie. Which is just, I like how it's just...
or like I would say...
one note that crescendos to an orchestra.
Or even like Requiem for a Dream, where it's like drugs are bad and it's no more simple than that. And you know they're making bad choices. You know where it's going. You can't look away like a train wreck. And it goes all the way back to fucking Antigone, dude. It's the classic Greek tragedy. The whole point of what makes something a tragedy instead of just a general drama is at the beginning someone goes, this is not going to end well. And you know the whole time and you're just watching it unfold.
You just feel tense.
Yeah. And I love very pointedly in Carrie, even Carrie herself goes, it's just going to be a trick. Like, why would they like me suddenly? They're going to trick me, mama. And then the mama's like, you're getting pulled into this. They're going to laugh at you. And you see, and you as the audience see them be like, we're going to prank her. Here's step 2 of the prank. Okay, the prank is ready. You're like, this is not going to end well. That's the feeling you get the whole time. It's dread more than jump scares or more than, and it's like horror at the meanness of people, which is something King, of course, does a lot, but not all the time. It's like not ghosties. It's
internal spookies.
It's the inside spookies. So let's get into it. In our first segment, where if what we just said doesn't make sense, it soon will, because we're going to synopsize this baby in Under the Dome.
Our best guess puts the dome at 20,000 feet, sir.
Did he just call it a dome?
You think we might be stuck in here a while?
Under the dome. Under this dome.
Kiss the dome.
Kiss the dome.
This is where we click quickly walk through. Sometimes it's long. I forget, but I'm gonna try and be quick.
We go
this
through the
time.
whole movie and
tell you
we
what's up.
punctuate moments that we like.
Yeah, even if you've seen it, it might have been a while.
But let's
yeah.
streamline this
Do it.
because I like to streamline. Plus, this movie's like fucking, boop, it zips. Opening image: Carrie sucks at volleyball. She's bullied by her peers. We get this credit sequence that you probably want to talk about, Mike, which is naked high school girls in the locker room.
It makes me pretty uncomfortable being 37, and also I think it's hilarious how at the end they cut to a shower nozzle that is a very specifically shaped shower nozzle that looks like a chrome robot
Looks like
penis,
a little tiny.
and it is just shooting cum at her.
Yeah, that's right. I had that same thought. I was like, that's a penis.
Yeah, of course.
Way to go, Brian De Palma, director of Carrie. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing that we do as a society. We definitely did it. We still kind of do it because I'm thinking like Daenerys Targaryen was technically supposed to be like 16 when
Right.
she like walked out of, with dragons and all naked. But like definitely a 70s thing, an 80s thing, a slasher thing, all that you want to say. It's also weird that I'm like, also most of these women are like 26, like that's, so
Right.
it's like not, it feels wrong for multiple reasons, but it feels not wrong, or it's like not wrong for one reason. That's all I'm pointing
Well,
out.
and that I guess what makes it defensible is that the very next scene, the same scene, but the whole point of this sequence is she, at the last shot, blood starts, like you get a shot where you're like, are we going to see puss? And then blood starts flowing down her legs. So I'm saying the whole point is to try and get you kind of horny and then be like, it's a horror movie, bitch. And I actually think that's a defensible technique. It's pretty effective. And it immediately draws you into Carrie's world, which is horrible. So she's having her first period. And we find out later that she has never been informed that would happen or anything about it.
By her mother.
She doesn't know what's
yeah.
going on. And she just shrieks and shrieks and asks for help like she's bleeding out. And everyone, including the coach, like the teacher figure, just makes fun of her. I mean, the girls make fun of her saying, plug it up, and throwing tampons at her, like basically like literally intentionally, like someone being stoned in the Bible.
Right.
I know the actress Sissy Spacek like has studied the posture of people who are stoned in the Bible as she gets pelted with tampons. And then the coach comes in and is like, stop making fun of her, but also, you don't know what a period is? That's stupid. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I think
so
she's just
everyone gets that.
confused at first.
She slaps her, dude. You can't
She slaps
do that.
it, yeah. But
I guess you
don't-
can in
yeah.
the 70s.
In the set, everyone's slapping everybody in this movie.
Like many,
That's-
or at least two teachers straight up slap Carrie, which is wild.
yeah. Multiple kids. Miss
Yeah, other
Collins
kids
slaps
too, yeah.
multiple kids. It's man.
Learn math, slap.
Yeah. I wonder what the 70s was really like. Was schools just slap fest, just slap factories, slapping
John
all the time?
Travolta's there.
Yeah.
Whoa, you slapped my face.
You
Oh,
slapped my face. Yeah.
let's
But
boogie.
we in it though we
Mm-hmm.
see that she screams, not wanting to be touched at this point, and we get the first hint of her secret power. A light bulb breaks, and then we cut to the principal, and he's like, "All right, go home for the day." And he's not a good principal. He's very bad. And Carrie flips an ashtray when he can't get her name right. Keeps calling her Cassie.
Mhm.
On her way home, a shitty little boy on a bicycle calls her creepy Carrie, and she just flips that little shit's bicycle and like hurts his leg. It's great. So we get this vibe that like the outside world is constantly attacking this poor young woman, and at home,
Well,
Carrie's
yeah,
mom
and
is
sorry,
Mhm.
but as tragedies must go, it shows you the ending like 4 times right at the front, right? It's like people are mean to her, but they don't realize she's psychic and she fucks back with them
and she
back.
fucks. Yeah,
And then someone's mean to her and she fucks with them. And then someone's mean to her and she fucks with them. Guess what the climax is going to be?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what makes it
So
a
it's-
dread. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. Carrie's mom, famously, she's Bible thumper, trying to preach the good word
To the level of
nearby
being a
houses.
cultist. Yeah.
And when Carrie gets home, she tells her that menstruation is a sin. and torments her, basically tortures her just like the students.
Makes her go to her
And-
little Harry Potter
Praying
closet she lives in
closet,
under
yeah.
the stairs, where all she can do is pray to a little glowing figurine of Saint Sebastian, and she has to pray for hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's meant to be Jesus, but yeah, in the trivia
I looked
section,
it up.
Saint Sebastian is what they used on the day. Because they like because I don't know, maybe they don't have light up eye Jesus.
It doesn't even look like Jesus, or I would say like it's not but maybe in the book it was Jesus. Who cares? She prays.
That's a
for
badass
hours.
prop, though.
It
I
is a
want
cool
that prop.
Yeah.
Like just to have around, just these eyes looking at me from the
and then
hallway.
of course, and you know, because the cycle must continue, Carrie is so upset that a mirror shatters. So that's the fourth iteration.
Cool
of,
shot too.
Stop fucking with her. She's psychic.
And if you notice that is also the score of Psycho.
Literally, De Palma,
Yeah.
the director's like, fuck it. We'll literally just use the iconic Psycho music. It's very Tarantino. It's like a quote, like a
Yeah.
brazen quote of just, the dun, 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 dun.
I kind of love a lot of the choices that De Palma makes in general, but definitely
Yeah.
in this movie, it's one of his top tier. We'll get into that later.
We'll get to it. So she's at English class the next day. The teacher literally
With Mario, by the way.
I
Did you
love-
see it?
yeah. I love this maneuver, but the English teacher reads a poem that, if you parse the words, is literally about the importance of being kind to each other, and then shits on Carrie for like, what did you think of the poem? And she's like, it's beautiful. And he goes, that's all? It's beautiful? You're stupid.
You're
like,
dumb.
essentially, yeah. And then this jock with golden locks and dreamy
Tommy.
eyes sticks up for her. Just barely. He goes like,
Barely.
you suck, dude, to the teacher. What was that? Nothing.
Yeah.
And she is instantly smitten, like you can see, of course, because he was nice to her. Someone writes Carrie White eats shit on her locker or the wall of the gym or whatever. They blame her for making them lose volleyball. Like that matters in life at all.
Right.
The coach calls all the girls forward and chews them all out for being mean girls and forces them to do extra gym. And then one of the girls is, I think her name's Chris, who will become a primary antagonist, is like,
Top of the food chain, the mean girl.
yeah,
You know,
I don't
attendant.
want to do that. And the coach is like, fine, you lose prom. That's it. Done. Your prom, no prom for you. And she's like, Carrie White will pay for this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Carrie is looking up miracles in the library because this is what she's like. I don't know. I think I can do miracles, which
Yeah.
is one of the cooler
makes sense.
aspects.
Well,
Just
she would
someone
think.
researching what they are when they have superpowers.
Yeah.
And then we get an important character that I want to, kind of just signpost just because later is relevant. Sue Snell.
Good name.
Yeah. Sue Snell, who's played by Amy Irving, is kind of a remorseful peer of Carrie's. Asks her, as we saw in the previous scene in the classroom, her resident hot boy, Tommy, who's her boyfriend.
Hot but nice.
Says-
He's nice.
Yeah, she's like, I don't even want to go to prom anyway. I want to do something nice for Carrie. I think what they did was fucked up. So can you ask Carrie to prom and show her a good time? Can you do that for me, Tommy? And he's like, Babe, I don't want, like, he's just being weird. And that's,
Well, it is a weird request. But then
it's a
very
weird request,
quickly,
but he's-
I thought it was a
Yeah.
nice touch. He watches a cowboy movie that night, and a hero on the screen is like, I'll protect you. And he's like, you know what? I will take Carrie to prom.
I will.
Yeah.
And then we enter John Travolta in
In
one
a
of his first
symmetrical
acting
scene.
roles.
Right. Because
Yeah.
she's also asking her boyfriend a favor. Yeah.
And we get this parallel between John Travolta and Chris, who is the head honcho of the
main mean
ladies.
girl. Yeah. Queen Bee.
And they're out on the town, and I want to mention the scene for two reasons. One, John Travolta is unconvincing that he can drink a beer. It just dribbles all over, like mostly comes out onto his chin. He does it multiple times. It's very strange.
And he's
choice.
not good. It's a really early.
I think
role-
he's trying to
role
be
for
like,
him.
I'm a bumpkin and I can't even drink
He's
right.
playing dumb. Yeah. His
Yeah.
character is clearly a fucking yokel.
And he slaps Chris for calling him a shit. He doesn't like being called a shit. And Chris,
shit. Why are you so mean to me? Oh.
And Chris slaps him back. Like everyone's slapping each other.
And it
we'll-
makes
we'll
them
have a-
horny, y'all. The slapping.
He does.
The
yeah,
slap
the
fight,
slapping.
yeah.
So I guess, I can't kink shame, but I think the movie's trying to, we'll talk more about it later, but how the abuse of the community is kind of ritualistic. In
Well,
some
he loves
sense.
this. It's like Derry and It, right? He doesn't push
Yeah.
it to the supernatural, or it's also like the Overlook Hotel and The Shining. But he's like, there's places in the world where everyone's just a piece of
Yeah.
shit, and that would suck. So she blows him, John Travolta, and says like, I need a big favor because I hate Carrie White. And it cuts out ominously. And something many people pointed out online, but it must be said, she has the amazing ability, thanks to recording her voice afterwards, to be doing a full-on blowjob, like head bobbing up and down at the bottom of frame, while calmly speaking perfectly to him. Like, I think we need to do something bad about Carrie White. It's like, where's the dick? Where's the dick in your mouth?
Where's the dick?
Anyway,
How are you? Like, if that happened, I'd be like, whoa, this we need to stop and talk about.
Yeah. She gets
You're
a
an X-Men.
Yeah, Carrie gets a heart-to-heart from the coach, who has shown like some interest, but a clumsy interest in helping her. And she essentially tells her to smile more, like fix your attitude and be more
that's right.
normal. Yeah. So you're just seeing that people have nothing for her, right? She's a precious, based on the novel pushed by Stephen King. Like there's no port in a storm for her. Her life sucks. That's the horror of it.
Tommy eventually asks Carrie out to prom, does the deed, but she runs away. Because I like this. I like how they played this, because when she kind of runs into Miss Collins about it, Miss Collins responds like, "Oh, that's so great," but like Carrie's like, "No. There's a grift here. I know what's up." And even Miss Collins, by the end of that conversation, knows something's up. So she takes Tommy and Sue aside and says, like,
The fuck you doing?
Really? What the fuck are you doing? Everyone knows what happens. Everyone knows the social hierarchy. You don't date her. What is going on here?
Yeah.
And Sue says, honestly, I'm not trying to hurt her. But Collins is kind of reluctant, but then kind of presses forward because she also buys into the kind of like, maybe it would be nice for Carrie. I also want to do something nice for Carrie. And so Tommy presses further and tries to convince Carrie to go to prom by telling her, I won't leave your doorstep until you say yes. And then she finally says, okay, when he says, I'm asking you, like the reason I'm doing it actually is because you liked my poem, which is like just an inkling of some kind of kindness.
It's not a good enough reason, but it's
not a good enough reason.
It's just
But
his story
she's-
to convince her.
But
yeah.
she's starved for it.
So she
and that's
buys
what's
it
important.
hesitantly,
Hook, line, and
which is
yeah,
the
well,
tragedy, of course.
Hesitantly, but eventually hook, line, and
Eventually,
sinker.
she's all in, right? But at first,
Yeah.
she says, "Well, I just think it's pointed that she says to her mom, they're probably tricking me," and her mom's like, "Yeah, they probably are," but she needs it so
Everyone
bad
knows
that
it's
she
some-
goes into it. Yeah.
And
Meanwhile, Travolta and Chris have figured out what they're going to do to get back at Carrie. Pretty straightforward. They're going to rig the prom votes so that she wins prom queen because they find out Tommy's taken her. And they're going to kill a pig at one of the farms secretly at night, take all the blood, and dump it on her head like a Nickelodeon Double Dare slime challenge, but with pig's blood.
And we see
as an echo of her period, right? Because that's what she's
Right.
known for at school.
and we see the scene where John Travolta and Chris go to a pig farm and murder a pig.
I wanted to read his line.
Yeah.
I'm going to bash your piggy heads in and you won't have to worry about the bomb no more. I just get her done, man. I get her done. And he kills a pig with a sledgehammer.
Get her done.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I was like, when I remember watching this and going like, Chris is, I was like, is she gonna, does she
Is
like
she gonna
this?
blow
Does
this
she hate
pig
this?
to get it to
Nope,
give the blood?
Cuts to her screaming and going, do it.
Do it.
They're just
Kill it.
two fucking maniacs.
Like, they are not just trying to get back at Carrie. They're horny to kill
They
a pig with a
love
hammer.
it.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah, Carrie tells mom, I'm going to prom and there's nothing you can do about it because let's cut the shit. I'm psychic. Like, I could fuck you up. And you know that
I
that's
love
true.
this
And the mom
great
goes,
turn.
yeah, that's how I know that you're like Satan. Like, I see that as Satan's witch magic inside you.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize, well, yeah, that's how the relationship got so toxic, right? Is Carrie instinctively uses telekinesis to protect herself, which the mom sees as even more proof that she's like a demon child.
You're a demon child, yeah. And I wanted to point out in the scene that, like, Carrie's goal is clearly to be normal. She's like, I just want to be normal, to stop the pain. And she drinks the Kool-Aid quick enough that at a certain point in the conversation, she says like, but mama, like everyone thinks I'm funny. Like it's not that bad, even though it actually is that bad. And mom has diagnosed it. Mom sees people as base animals. And in this movie, they really are. And I just also want to point out that
so is she, but but she's not wrong.
Yeah, she's the worst. Sissy Spacek at literal midpoint of the film says, I'm gonna use my powers, you can't stop me. Great, just great. I love it. Turns out that Travolta and Chris are rigging, and then it cuts to them rigging in the stage.
I love
proms tonight.
Or just to do this prank, which obviously in the case of this film it has dire consequences, but I'm just saying I could see a version where someone gets covered in blood and it's not that big. And they're like, I'm going to graduate in a month anyway. Fuck you all.
Right.
You're bastards, but I don't care.
Like I'm out of here.
Like it doesn't injure her. It doesn't ruin her life. Obviously in this case it does, but because of what happens. And my other point, it's like hilarious to me that to pull it off, they have to hide under the stage for the entire duration of prom. It's a shitty prank. Like it requires too much effort.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, they really hate Carrie.
Yeah,
That's
real
the
bad.
deal.
Yeah.
They're probably fucking under that stage, you know?
At least to pass the time. Yeah. So
Prom's tonight. Chris employs a lackey to like rig the prom queen election by getting on the
who
school
cares
board.
how? Yeah, they rig the election. She wins.
But
prom queen.
everyone's a buzz. People prepare, and we get a scene where Carrie actually telepathies her mother into her bed when she tries to convince her to like, you should burn all your prom stuff. But she's picked up by Tommy, who acts the part. At the prom, Miss Collins tells us a story about going to prom with a star basketball player and how their car broke down and they had to walk and they weren't like up to dancing. So they just talked and it was a magical night. And she reminds Carrie that you'll never forget prom and it's special. And it comes from a genuine place. You get the feeling from Miss Collins, but she wants Carrie to have a better time. And Tommy and Carrie dance. We get the famous 360-1er conversation, and it's really well done. It's maddening, and it's kind of again half genuine, half something about to go like terribly wrong. It's like this drain as we spin into the inevitability of like the carnage to proceed. And Tommy and Carrie vote for themselves as prom king and queen. The ballots are collected. And the ballots winner is straight out of like old school MGM pictures. I love like how
Speaking of
it feels
MGM,
like
I gotta
Touch of
say,
Evil.
from that spinny shot, which we'll talk about more in the next segment, it really put me in the mind of the tornado from Wizard of Oz, and the idea that she does very shortly enter a brand new world where she has all the power because she's wearing something red. I don't know if there's anything there, but.
Yeah, absolutely. There's color theory behind this movie. But after kind of that magical moment of walking up to the microphone and being voted as prom king and queen, Carrie finds kind of her false happiness. And meanwhile, Sue, who is kind of the remorseful, not friend of Carrie's, but
white knight at least,
fellow student, notices the blood and just the whole plot that's going on under the stage moments before it happens. And Sue is the only outsider, like kind of as with morals at this point. She's like us at this point, but she's an abuser, kind of turns sympathetic is what they're trying to convey. And they throw Sue out for trying to make a scene right before all the blood pours over her. Yeah, it's the famous scene y'all probably seen. It's slow-mo. Overscore.
I won't
no
belabor the climax but the last 20 minutes of the film, of course, is a famous epic climax that if you're aware of the movie, you're aware of it. So to do it very quickly, there's this epic split screen, climactic sequence where Carrie flips out, her powers manifest in a Dark Phoenix-esque way. And she just sort of instinctively kills everyone, locks the doors, cuts people in half with basketball backboards and shit, electrocutes people with falling cables, which sets a fire, which burns, and then like walks home, destroying the town as she goes. That's it's not really plot carrying, but understand that it's like a good 10 minutes, right? Of shit, of like. Basically the coming of that shower nozzle. Like it's the scene you've been waiting for, and here it is. Billy and Chris try to kill
It's
her with
really
their
cool.
car, a proud 70s bully tradition.
Mhm.
And she just, like, fuck you, with her mind, flips the car, blows that up, kills
Flips
them
it.
both,
Yeah.
goes home. The mom is fervently trying to, like, expunge her energy from the house with prayers and candles and shit. But she just calmly goes to the bath, washes the blood off, and says, Mama, please hold me. It was horrible. They laughed at me. But Mama tries to kill her. They fight. You want to bring it home?
Yeah. Apparently to her, I just want to point out, sex
Right.
is sin. Any type of sex. There's an important scene before they fight where she confesses to Carrie that she's like, I probably shouldn't even had you, like, but that the horniness took me, and that's the devil's method. And so she's like, we'll pray for the last time. We'll pray.
Like,
And then she
obviously, I
stabs
should have killed
Carrie
you
in
at
the
birth.
back. But
Oops.
yeah, but Carrie flings a series of knives into her mother, killing her, which seems to like be a comfort for her more than anything, because she dies like Jesus on the cross, which is a big
Pretty
deal
sweaty,
for her.
yeah.
And then Carrie screams. She realizes she's alone, hugs her dead mother, and tears the whole fucking house down upon herself. With the mother, she dies in the closet / praying closet / altar that she prayed before, and light up Jesus looks on. And then the next day, as an epilogue, we get the scene where Sue's mother tells a friend on her phone that they're moving out of town
Too
because
traumatic,
this
yeah.
is a traumatic experience for Sue, and Sue survives. Sue goes, we get in a series of cuts that Sue goes to Carrie's house with flowers to drop on her grave. The grave is actually a for sale sign made out to look like a grave that has been graffitied with Carrie White burns in hell. And then Carrie's hand rises from the ground and grabs hers.
Man,
Turns out it
dude.
was a dream, and Sue is seen as the final pullback of the film. Sue is seen as seemingly
Right.
one of the only survivors of this prom massacre. It's forever
1976,
traumatized.
so I guess it's a little more acceptable. But Friday the 13th, misery itself, like, boy, we gotta never again, or at least for the next 100 years, let's not do the ending where the monster's zombie hand comes up and it goes like, but it was all a dream, or was it the end? ? Like, let's retire that shit.
Yeah,
for real.
that's nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Elm Street.
But it was
shit.
1976,
which
it
is
was
great.
his first
it's
book, so,
classic. But I know why we
Right.
walked away from that, to be honest.
And let's
Yeah.
walk way, way, way over to our
Uh,
next segment, I think, where we
Woo,
yeah, it was pretty good.
That was quick. I like it.
where we talk about the cast and the crew and sort of set up the broader conversation mechanically. It's called Skeleton Crew.
Something in the mist! Shut the doors! Shut the door!
Yeah. So there's a bunch of people with 10 just impressive resumes on this film. The ones that obviously one of the big the start of Sissy Spacek's
Nominated for the
career.
Oscar for it.
Amy Irving as well. Nancy Allen had already been semi-established, but Nancy Allen, if you don't recognize the name, that's RoboCop.
She's RoboCop. It was very transformative. She's a real.
She's
comedian.
not RoboCop.
And of course,
yeah.
Piper Laurie as the mom, because it's a tour de force performance, so we have to mention it. The behind the scenes thing I wanted to mention about Piper Laurie, which I'm sure you also read. And this is an interesting through line for King
Yeah.
because, of course, we've discussed how Danny in The Shining, that actor, didn't know they were making a scary movie, which was probably appropriate to shield the kid from that. They would just tell him what to do in scenes and they'd, hide him from the reverse shot where you see the monster. In this, several of the actors barely understood what was going on. So, like, Nancy, who played Chris, has said multiple times that she thought it was like a dark comedy because their prank was so stupid. She thought that they were like, which they are, like yokel bumblefucks, but she thought the music would be funny and it would be like Dukes of Hazzard and they're like idiots, right? And they would be comic relief was her, what she thought. And of course they're not. They're like the primary. When she saw it, she's like, oh, we're so mean. We're the villains. And then Piper Laurie, who played Margaret White, insisted that it's got to be a comedy because Brian De Palma's forcing her to do this character that she sees as ridiculously over the top. She's like, this Christian bullshit is so stupid on its face. And yeah,
which is particularly salient to me. I don't know. I just find it's perfect nutshelling of
What
like
is horror?
what is art and who what is horror and all that. This is a role that she was nominated for an Academy Award.
I was
for.
like, I didn't
so
get
it's
it.
just like, so it's just. I didn't get it. This is bullshit movie. Oh, I guess I'm nominated for an Academy Award.
And,
all right.
Also
Cool.
very interesting in the light of a movie you exposed me to this year at a Small Beans Monday movie night. If you're listening to this, join us Monday movie night, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Small Beans Discord channel, the movie night channel, which anyone's welcome to. But anyway, you showed me Phantom of the Paradise, which is also a De Palma movie.
Yeah.
De Palma directed this. And I will say, watching Phantom of the Paradise, which is like off the wall wacky, but not bad. It's inventive in how you're like, this is really weird. This is very engaging in how weird, like zany and wacky and bright it is. And it really made me think of De Palma different because I associate him with his more serious stuff. And I'm like, oh, he has like a Sam Raimi-esque streak in him. And it makes me appreciate Carrie more too, for sure.
Yeah, when he was young, he was a little bit more unhinged.
It does feel like the
settled into
world of Brian De Palma. He's a little askew.
Yeah, it really does. I think that at the time, that's how they were marketing directors too. You know, like that was like the vibe because they were like, all right, so all the old guys are dead, mainly Hitchcock. What are we as a generation?
Yeah.
We're the slashers. Yeah.
Blood splattered, not your grandpa's
and actually
slasher.
bringing up
fuck you, the camera's tilted.
Yeah,
shit.
exactly. Fuck you. Yeah, exactly. Bringing up Phantom of Paradise is great because Cece Spacek was a like carpenter on that film.
That's
or
crazy.
Like she worked in the production design. Yeah, and that was partially because she was dating, or at some point was dating Jack Fisk, who is a well-known art director, production designer in Hollywood. He's known as perhaps the best, arguably the best art director, production designer in the business. If you don't know his name, because most people probably don't know who Jack Fisk is.
He's the kingpin,
He
man.
is
He's
the guy
Spider-Man's
that
greatest
anytime
adversary.
he's the guy that everyone, when they talk about, there's like a production designer who for Tree of Life, for example, when he did Tree of Life, he made they built a whole like street with houses and like to make it look like the suburbs, and there was something like 20 houses on a block, and he filled each one of those houses, even though they weren't being filmed, with books and like all the shit that you would have that you would to function in that world. He's like the Methodist production designer there exists. He did The Revenant, he did Tree of Life, like I mentioned, There Will Be Blood, Mulholland Drive, Straight Story, Thin Red Line.
Damn,
works a
Straight
lot with
Story
Terrence
rules,
Malick,
too.
obviously, and Phantom of the Paradise, baby. So he's just like one of those, just like, the
boy.
master.
Wow.
Oh, baby. So just heavy hitter. And this is like when he was an art director as opposed to production designer, and he was working his way up. So even though horror typically is like, well, it's usually the Savinis and like the creature features and the makeup and effects departments that get all the credit. This is where we start getting into the art directing aspect of it, which is pretty cool. And so, long story short, that's Jack Fisk. Cece Spacek was not considered to be
Famous yet.
like really
Right.
an actress by Brian De Palma yet. He was like, oh yeah, she can audition,
It's a
but
Harrison
she
Ford
didn't really
situation.
want her to. But then she knocked it out of the park, and he was like, okay, I was going to cast Amy Irving as Carrie, but now Amy Irving, you moved to Sue, which is a much smaller role. So yeah, just
Well,
that's
now
a
I
kind
hate
of a
Sissy
cool,
Spacek.
weird,
Perfect. Use it.
Harrison Ford situation.
Yeah.
Perfect. Use it. But that's kind of a cool way of how the things kind of formed. You want to hear another
Sure.
weird
I
fact
have
that
some
I
too.
thought was
Yeah, go.
hilarious from the production? So apparently
Oh,
Steven
this is the one I was
Spielberg
gonna
would
bring up,
often
yeah, for
come
sure.
to the set. Oh yeah. So because Brian De Palma and Steven Spielberg at this time, two hot single directors who are filming with, there's a lot of cute girls in Brian De Palma's production, was the word on the street. And Spielberg apparently asked out most of the women on the set. And obviously one of those people was Amy Irving, who's the only one who went on a date with him. And of course, as you know, if you listen to our show, the Spielboys, or no, Spielberg, in some sense, they were married for a few years.
Right, which is also interesting when you couple it with the factoid that most of the girls were reticent to be nude and took some convincing, and Sissy Spacek had to shoot her nude scene first and then show that footage. So I don't know. I don't want to see Spielberg as like cruising, but he was also very young at this time. Like he's in his late 20s. Asking out girls.
They were all
in their
cruising
20s, but I'm like, oh no, Steven Spielberg's purity. But then I guess it's saved because he married her and had a kid with her. I'm like, all right, that's cute again. He's cute again.
That's like the most Steven Spielberg
to date a random woman.
Yeah, it's like, I'm gonna go out there and ask all those girls, and one of them's gonna be my wife.
Do you know
like
the Harry Nilsson
Steven
one? And
Spielberg,
I know this
baby.
is not on topic, but it's quick. Or do you know Harry Nilsson's proposal
Hit
story?
me with the Harry Nilsson. No.
He saw a woman at like a shop and was like, I'm in love with this woman. And he left and he came back, or they chatted and he found out some of her favorite things. So like he left and came back with like a limousine filled with like 50 watermelons because she mentioned liking her, like all this shit. And was like, please marry me. And she said yes, which is crazy. And they were married for the rest of their lives.
What a time to be alive during.
So anyway, yeah, that's what I was going to cover.
That's the crazy part. That's the aspect that's the craziest is they remained married. Because I totally believe in the 60s that people were like, let's get married, just on a whim. But the fact that they were like, I like the idea that they're like, no, bond. They hate each other, but they're like, we need to stick it together for the bond.
So last things I got are that Piper Laurie, the mom, I just shout out because even though she admits not understanding the exact assignment, she is good in it. And she said that the scratch marks on her face at the end are real. So she tried hard. Like she scratched her face up for this show. You know, she still tried.
Yeah.
Sissy Spacek, of course, famously probably wanting to prove herself, and admirably so. Tried really, really hard, read a lot, stayed covered in the blood to stay in it. Like, you know, kept herself separate from Chris and John Travolta so as to not form a likable relationship with them. Shit like that. And the only other thing I had, which I do think is funny, is that in real life, Sissy Spacek was prom queen. And I'm not saying she was mean, but I always think it's funny because if you become a famous actor or especially actress, the way that our society is set up, you kind of are like one of the beautiful people to be in that to have reached that position. And it's always interesting. One of them are like, I'm going to play a loser, like a real nerd, some shitty dork.
Little Princess Diaries.
That's all for me.
Yeah. Because what are we going to do? Pay money to look at the uglies?
Coen Brothers shit.
Go fuck yourself. Yeah, that's Coen Brothers. Let's all, and then then all the uglies are like, let's get together and make our own movies. And no one watches them.
Marty. Maybe we'll talk about that someday. But are you ready to move into the next passage?
All I want to add is just that because we like to keep tabs on Stephen King, who is credited in this film with a V because that's how low on the totem pole he is at this point in his career. He liked the ending in the movie better than the ending of his own book, which is only true about The Mist.
I don't know the ending of the book. Do you?
Yeah. I think I read it, and I think it's she dies on the street after blowing up John Travolta.
And that's just the end. Okay.
John Travolta and Chris. She dies like on the street.
So basically, he's just saying it was a good
denouement
that she collapsed the house on the mom and herself. Yeah, which it is. That's
right.
Good. Sure.
Right. Yes. Well, I think that's the thing. And let's move on to the next section, which we call It.
Bill, if you'll come with me, you'll float too. Yellow flow too. Yellow flow too.
This is where we want, if we want to get into the scene work,
May as
scene
well
work
kick
a
it
little
off
bit
where
more.
you're at, yeah.
But knowing it's Michael and me, we're gonna talk themes and symbolism mostly because that's the shit we really like. Yeah, no, I actually want to move the conversation towards like Brian De Palma is really good at setting tension, right? The angles, he always uses canted angles, and they're very off-putting and kind of perfect for horror or darkness in general. And the editing is really sharp, not just in a 1970s way, but like particularly Brian De Palma, he's abrupt with his edits, kind of like we covered on Frame Rate. We covered McCabe and Miss Miller, right? And it's kind of a similar era where it's like it really cuts, and jarringly so, for effect,
At
which
this
we
time.
don't do as much, I would say, or at least
It's
we're tamer.
Yeah,
We're
and that's
tamer
part
now.
of what gave me the Raimi vibe. He does that too, and he did it earlier than others.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I think the unique thing about Raimi and De Palma is that if you look at how they do motion, meaning like camera moves, jump cuts, zooms, they both have that abruptness. They cut it off early, or just it completes the zoom and then it cuts right at the end, a little too soon, it feels. And that's them kind of saying, kind of like we were saying earlier, not your grandpa's movie, like we cut early, that's small steps. It's the 70s, baby. And I love how he stages small little vignettes and how he kind of affected the ending. There's little, an event that he stages at one point is while that Carrie is kind of, like in the thrall of like kind of enjoying that she's going to prom, and her mom comes up, and in that scene at one point she's looking out the window to see if Tommy's arrived, and two cars almost collide in the street, and it's just little things like that he does just to build tension, just to make you feel like you're never let go by the movie, and you're just like, why do I feel like this is all coming to a head? Which is why I mentioned kind of like whiplash at the beginning of this. It's like, to me, Brian De Palma's probably greatest power, he did in like The Untouchables, is that vibe that you get when you see like a movie like Whiplash, where you're like, oh, this thing is just not letting me get away from it. And he's fantastic at it. And I wanted to point that out.
Counterpoint.
I think it's true.
I feel like I can't go as far praising De Palma, having seen, I like at least 5-6 of his movies at this point, maybe multiple times in most cases. Like I understand his work. Phantom of the Paradise was new to me and delightful, but
Yeah.
you know what? It's not even a knock, because dated things be dated. Like time makes fools of us all. But I guess I'll just say, and I have to remind myself, it's 1976, which at this point is, is 47 years ago. Wow, almost 50 years ago. So I got to remember that. But I will say, just the modern experience of watching it, parts of it come off silly to me through the modern context, because they milk it so hard, beyond the point where, like, I would say when the bucket's dropping, it's like inserts of someone evilly licking their lips, and the inserts after inserts just goes on and on, a hand gripping a rope, a bead of sweat going down someone's forehead. It's like, I get it, they're gonna drop the fucking bucket on her.
That's also that's European shit, man.
You're technically
that's also,
building tension, but you're building
wave.
it to a degree that comes off as almost farcical to me. By modern standards, we would just keep it tighter.
Yes.
And so there's stuff that can't help become cheesy, like the 70s fashion is clearly out of control and just weird looking to us. Abe, I know you dislike diopter shots. There's a ton of them in this movie. And I still, and this is a problem with the book too, unless you hear her interior life more, but I still don't understand, given the circumstances, how when they announced that she won prom queen, how she could truly believe for a second that it was true. I just don't buy that she could even think that. Like, it would seem so suspicious.
She jumps on board pretty quick.
Yeah.
Even though she's hesitant and she's like,
and
nah,
apparently Tommy is killed when the bucket hits his head, which
necessary.
That's just not viable either. Anyway, but what I'm getting at is,
Oh, I just thought he got knocked out, and then
I looked up
the whole
the
thing burned
Wikipedia
down, so
synopsis of the book and of the, because I wanted to know, like, I think it's a little unclear. They needed one more scene of like what became of Tommy, because you don't see his body nor do you see him alive, so you have to just assume he burned alive or something. But depending on the book or movie version, he's either knocked out and burned alive, or the bucket actually caves his skull in, which I just think is silly. So my point is, much like Phantom of the Opera, I still think it comes off silly sometimes, more than successful at ratcheting tension, but at other times it's on point. And it's 50 years old, so.
yeah. I think that there's another thing I want to mention while we're talking about direction and stuff. Color, because you mentioned color, like with that. Huge thing. And this movie is pretty solid, like in terms of like it actually has like a color theory behind it. Like red and pink and warmth is like agitation very clearly in this movie, and blue is this sense of comfort and what is perceived to be stability. But as we'll probably get into, like kind of what's the meaning of the movie, probably the intended meaning of the movie, that's a false stability. Like Tommy's car is blue, his suit, the prom's theme is like blue toned. Yeah, but both colors are wrong. It's all fucked is the system. But he likes to contrast red and blue with a unique type of agitation, which is mainly like social hierarchy and religion and abuse and the idea of what being normal is. Blue is like the normal color. But I love how this movie, and this is mostly Stephen King's work at this point now, I love how the movie kind of does take down social hierarchy and religion. Yeah, it's probably got like, it's pretty kitten paws in terms of like today's kind of, hard, edgier horror movies that have social commentary. But for its time, it was fine. But like we get in this movie where it's like teachers are abusing students, students abuse students, boyfriends abuse girlfriends, and vice versa. And everybody abuses Carrie. And this is seen to be a fairly normal situation to the point of parody. And at home we get religion that does essentially the same: follow these rules, say these things, do these things. And so the movie's kind of saying that social organizations kind of operate in a set of rules and guidelines where one kind of has to follow them. And society on the other side, like in general, has normalized sin, which is why we get like the BJ and we get a lot of the sexual undertones of the movie, which, according to Carrie's mother, religion sees as transgressive. But I love how Carrie knows instinctively that she's being fucked with. Like she's abused, like the scene with Miss Collins is like very key to that, where she's happy for Carrie to the point of looking in a mirror at one point and like living vicariously through Carrie. Like it's signaling to us like, yes, let's relive this ritualistic thing that we all do, prom, so that we can all remember and fondly look back of this is the best time or something like that. And Carrie's like immediately like, this is a scam. I know what a scam is. I live with scams all the time. And so now this movie kind of becomes this cry against the institution of sin and punishment. Like what dictates a sin in either world? Like that's Carrie's like, I don't understand that. So why would there be any redemption for it? So burn it all down. Like that's fucking dope. This movie seems to say that God or some kind of ultimate power, and in this case, Carrie's power, is like a cleansing power, and that's it. Life just is top-down abuse all the time from the more powerful, and that's what the world is. That's what I see in the movie Carrie, honestly.
Nice. I like it. I see a vibe and elements that have since suffused so many movies that it's stupid. That's the other thing I really wanted to talk about, is there are a lot of King movies. So for example, 1408. I talk 1408, Dr. Sleep too. I talk up those movies because I found them like fresh, funky takes on something. I like how 1408, its structure is not 1, 2, 3. I guess it is with his emotional arc, but the feel of it as you're watching is that the structure is just turn horror on, horror goes hard till the end. So I like those, but if you know what I mean, they don't feel like the mold from which all other horror movies flow in any sense. They don't feel monolithic. They don't feel like genre defining. Carrie kind of does, especially considering that it's 1976. I just wanted to run through, it's an overload of times where I wrote compared to blank. And I really love trying to connect up the genealogical web of where ideas and art come from. You know, ideas are memes. And like what, not necessarily just like who was first, but I'm interested in the whole flow of how things connect. We become fascinated. Like our old boss, Jack O'Brien, was upset, you know, often mentioned that there's a period where quicksand was a thing people thought a lot about, and then it went away, and now we don't. Like I'm also fascinated by shit like that. So my point being, religious person who's obsessed with the idea that sex is evil till the point that you have to crush and kill and destroy anything that's sex, including your own child, Antichrist. Sorry, it reminded me of Men very much by the end, how there's just this pervasive vibe of no one in the town will help you, everyone's a piece of shit. It reminded me of Witch in the predeterministic way of everyone treats her like a witch. She's gonna become a witch, here it comes, and it's here. The way the ending, the inevitability of the sinkhole and the way the fire looks, I'm just like, this is the end of Drag Me to Hell. She's literally going to hell right now, the biblical hell that her mother always threatened her with. That's the actual fear, or at least for me, my interpretation is, to me, the final punchline that De Palma's trying to insinuate is now that she's murdered all these people, if there is a hell, she probably will go to hell. I mean, that's why it says Carrie White burns in hell at the end.
Yeah.
And how sad is that after all we've seen and sympathized with? But yeah, but she just murdered a bunch of children. Right. She probably would go to hell. That's scary too. That's the nail in the coffin or whatever. Right. The mom's death throes are played like an orgasm, which reminded me of the end of Silent Hill, but also is very fresh for the time. I already mentioned Precious, or like the idea of someone whose life is just exists only in this narrow hallway of misery, and you're just aching the whole movie for them to find one nice person to break them out of this, because you know the whole world is not like this. Like you said, you're like, why is everyone in this town so mean? Like everyone in the town. And then, we talked about the Friday 13th thing at the end. But like even that, even though it's cheesy now, it's cheesy because it was iconic and used over and over and over. Oh, you know what's good? At the end, Jason springs out of the lake and you're like, he's still here, I guess. You don't think about it. End of movie. So there's just so many elements of this that have been borrowed again and again and only feel played out because they've been played out. And that means they were really strong elements, because otherwise they wouldn't get, like, this movie's been stripped for parts and reused a lot. Literally just like The Descent, dude. The image of a woman with her long straight hair plastered down with blood. This is one of the first of that. Yeah.
What predates? Yeah. I mean, that imagery is in some old fucking films.
I guess.
Like
my point is, shit. I do think that Palma successfully created something that feels monolithic or like
you're right.
Iconic.
Exactly. I think so. It's so iconic, and like we're still making references to it today. Like Adam Sandler in the 90s did "They're all gonna laugh at you" as like his main deal, and it's just him quoting a line from Carrie. Like it's crazy how deep these roots run. I like what you said about your takeaway though, and I think that there's something. If I think De Palma's like this watch through made me go, okay, there's something else here, because like I think he's drawing a line between like atonement and sacrifice and the concepts, the contrived kind of order that humans put on, you know, things like or do via religion and stuff like that, and also the like the punishment, like that's different from just punishment and abuse. Atonement is punishment for a purpose, to serve that order that they're trying to. It's usually justification for abuse, but punishment and abuse is meaningless. It's literally just lambs to the slaughter. You know, like it's killing a pig. It's John Travolta killing a pig. That's the postcard.
Dude, the cold
of
clothes
this movie
should have been
to
a
me.
farmer coming out into the barn, and you don't see what he sees, but he just walks into the barn. You hear him go, "Oh." Oh no. Oh no. Wilbur.
Oh no. Oh God.
You were the best
My
one.
favorite pigs. Yeah. Exactly. This movie also made me think that at some point, there should definitely be an X-Men movie called Jean.
Sure, yeah.
Where before Jean Grey
What's the
goes
Dark
to
Phoenix saga you're
Xavier's
talking about now?
school, she like murders a town. Yeah, that
I mean, in the
probably is
history of the
that. I mean, that
comics, because they've
I act
done
like-
everything
yeah.
at this point. Right.
they seen Carrie. They created.
I also
Jean
think the
Grey's kinda
tragedy
like
is
that
really
character, right?
also rooted in, which is great, the loss of potential. Like, as an aside, I'm sure, because now that I know how Stephen King works a bit, his mind, I'm sure in Stephen King's mind, she also has The Shining because it's different in everyone, and hers is telekinetic.
Right.
But my point being, if it is religious, then what if then she seems like she's like Joan of Arc? She probably is chosen by God, or why does she have this power? And then if it's the Shining thing and it's like X-Men style, and it's just a power, she's telekinetic and she's nice, like she's kind-hearted. Imagine the potential of what she could have done in life, or been, or helped people, and she never got a chance to do anything, and in fact became a tool of destruction, even though that wasn't in her heart. Like, you sense, she snapped and she did what she did, but she could have been she was a good person, and blah, blah, blah. So it's like the loss of potential. Like, and then I think manifest and multiplied manyfold by the fact that it's young people, specifically in the bloom of life, about to graduate high school, and they're all slaughtered. Like, when a bus of kids drowns, that's especially painful to us because of the idea of lost potential and what there was there.
Yeah.
It also made me go relook up the story of Blind Willie Johnson, and I just think that's notable if people don't know the story. Like, this is it's a special kind of tragedy to me for people who are amazing to not ever get a fair validation around that. So like, Blind Willie Johnson was this blues singer who had a career enough that he got recorded. Like, imagine Oh Brother Where Art Thou, right? Like, he sang at a couple radio stations and had tunes on the radio on wax cylinders and shit. And he died blind, penniless, living in a gutter when an abandoned building collapsed on him in a storm. And if you're also aware of the Voyager story, it's this golden thing that we sent out into space in case aliens find it, that's supposed to represent the best of Earth. And it's got like equals MC squared and Pythagorean theorem and shit on it. And it only has like 4 songs on it. And one of them is a Blind Willie Johnson song. And I'm just imagining a future where somehow we do make first contact through that record, and the aliens are like, yes, we're aware of this blues song. And you're like, it sucks that he died alone in a gutter. That's so sad in a special way that is painful. Like, unfairness. Right.
He went on
like,
to
if
be
he's
aliens.
the instrument of first contact for humanity, how poetically unfair. And this feels like that.
Yeah. And financially,
He
he didn't get any of those
Space bucks or
retroactive
nothing. Yeah.
residuals. That's how. Yeah, and that's when you die, it's like it's all.
Also, talk about
all
ableism.
over
Like, in
anyway.
that time, we're like, oh, you're blind? We're going to define you, literally define. Your name is Blind Willie. You're one-legged.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean? But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. What's your deal? What limb have you got cut off? Yeah, it's fucked.
This is Danny Dick.
We're all fucked, and that's. Yeah. He's like,
That was
hello,
an
I'm
accident.
Danny Dickless. And here's my beautiful song in my heart.
So that's what, it really drove home to
yeah.
me. That is pretty epic, is like the biblical themes of the fall, sin, how much lost potential there is in the fall, but also how much squandered potential there is if you treat a child like shit, because they could have been anything and now they're going to be broken. So that sucks. Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Right. And we kind of talked about a few times in this podcast about Stephen King was raised as a Methodist, and then around high school or later he decided, I'm not religious. But I think mostly probably as a PR move. I mean, I can't speak for the man. He'd probably fight me on this. He has since said, I believe there's God, but like, he doesn't have a religion. But he does seem to, as we kind of,
but he's not like
traverse the
Penn Jillette. Like he
King's
doesn't
Sphere-
hate organized religion as part of his
No.
brand. Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, I'd say that it's drawing from what he writes. It's very clear that almost all
Spiritual.
of these movies have a great respect for some kind of spiritual ultimate power. So he probably does believe in God, but it's like, I don't think he believes any human version of what God could be. Who can say? All I'm saying is in this movie, just like a lot of his movies, and this is like, you know, his first book or whatnot, it's very clear he wanted to send this message from the jump that he's like, by the way, a part of Americana, a part of America that is crooked, and one of its like sleaziest kind of fucking hypocrisies is religion. Religion is abuses your mind and literally your body for its purpose. And then he's also saying, so does high school, because he's a fucking nerd.
Yeah. It's a good nerd POV.
Yeah. It's a good nerd POV. Yeah. I think
I mean,
all for
we
me
did
for
it fast, but that's great stuff. Let your brain chew on that shit for a while.
Yeah.
Plus, the next
Yeah,
segment gets
or
longer
don't.
and longer, so we still got a couple minutes left as we enter our final segment, The Stand.
Time to make your stand.
This is where we rank the adaptation. On the list of everything we've ever covered, where it falls. At some point, I'll probably cave and we'll shorten it, but for now, the bit continues.
It's 22 long at this point. We've had
22nd
22
episode of Kings of
episodes. And we're gonna rank them all.
Probably
still.
starting at 22 because Carrie's good. Yeah, that'll get
I
more
think
attention.
so.
All right, let's do it
Yeah.
quick. We'll alternate. All right, 22.
Yeah,
Salem's
let's
Lot.
get through the
really bad.
Maximum
21,
Overdrive.
Maximum
even
Overdrive,
worse.
very bad, but cocaine fueled, which I like better than boring.
21, The Mangler. Just get this piece of shit off my eyeballs.
Number 20, Green Mile. That's a political decision. If you want to understand why I would hate on Green Mile so hard, listen to that episode.
Number 20, Dreamcatcher. It's a goddamn
Number
mess.
19,
That movie's a
Dreamcatcher.
mess.
It's a goddamn mess. Poop aliens and shit.
Number 19, 1979, Salem's Lot. For the reasons that
Oh
Michael
yeah, just
said.
straight boring. Not a hateful, just boring.
Mhm.
Number 18, same deal for me. Just boring. Children of the Corn.
Number 18 for me is Thinner. Just didn't work on
Thinner
me.
feels so
it just didn't work.
sleazy. Specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, there's multiple
even
reasons.
that
I was like,
I
nah.
think the makeup feels sleazy. It's like greasy. Anyway, number 17 for me is Desperation. Just stupid.
Yeah, we keep using that term. I mean, we are still in the number 17 for me, The Dark
Man,
Tower.
Cramming too much.
What a
into
mess.
Too little. Yeah. Number 16, The Mangler. Agreed with Abe, but I find it uniquely charming because of the performance of the villain, which is unhinged, and the specific challenge.
That's great.
Of
That's true.
like the Mangler can't move. That's so ridiculous. Yeah.
I can cede that point. Yes.
15
What are we on?
or 16. You're on 16.
15. 16. I'm on 16.
Boring.
Dead Zone.
15. The It TV
Yeah.
series, wildly overrated in my opinion.
This is where you and I agree. The 15th worst film that we've covered
Yep.
is 1990's It.
Synchronized. All right, moving on. Number 14, Dead Zone. Close to synchronicity.
Children of the Corn. I mean, at this point, I think if you go all the way down, we've chosen.
They're
each
just
other's
shifted
movie,
around.
except
The
for I
block
think Dark
is the
Tower.
same. Number 13 for me is
Yeah.
Thinner. That actually rounds out the block of sameness, I think.
Oh, okay, cool. And this is where I introduce Christine, which is heresy, I know, for a man who aspires to be exactly like John Carpenter.
But
in
Haunted
most
Car
things in
is
my
hard
life.
to work with. Also
Unfortunately,
stupid
Christine is
on
not
its
it.
face. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Also,
Ugh,
13
they-
rhymes with Christine, so that probably subconsciously affected you. You rube, you
Yes,
fucking
you're right.
robot.
I'm a simpleton.
Number 12, Running Man. Well made and fun to watch.
Fuck
but
off.
I can't say it's a good movie. It's like cheesy, Schwarzenegger bullshit. I can't take it seriously.
but
Terminator's
look
the only
what
one I
else
can
is
take
there.
seriously.
All right. I just think it deserves
Sure.
to be above so many, but Desperation
My number
is
11
my
is
number
Christine,
12.
and which is like I think quite an accomplishment because again, it's a dated film about a haunted car, but it's well made enough that it's in the middle of the list. That's pretty good.
My number 11 is
Yeah.
Creepshow. It's
Well,
middle
we're
of
entering the
pack,
top
really.
10. My number 10 is Apt Pupil, the well-acted film with good vibes, but everyone involved was like terrible. So, gotta dock you.
Yeah. Number 10 for me is
Ah.
actually The Green Mile, because I don't have as
Hang Up.
much of a hate as Michael does, and it's
My hang up
It's a
is not
well
that
put
it's
together
not well
movie,
put
more or
together.
less.
Yeah, they can listen. Number 9's Dark Tower.
yeah, exactly.
Sucks, really does suck, but I
Mhm.
love the basic elements of Dark Tower so much that it crept a little higher than it probably should. Yeah.
That's right. And number 9's where I put Apt Pupil for
It's
all the
good. It's
reasons
fine.
that Michael
Yeah.
said.
Number 8, Creepshow. I am a short story enthusiast and writer, so I like anthologies. So Creepshow went a little higher. Also, it's modeled after comic books. I think I have a deeper love of comic books than you do. So those things, I'm like, oh, it's comic book short stories. That's immediately my jam.
Number 8 for Abe, 1408.
Number 7,
Solid
1408.
film.
Big Cusack fan,
Solid
and as
film.
I said, I love how it goes hard from jump.
Number 7 for me is The Running
Ah.
Man.
You can
Great
like dumber
movie.
movies than me, and I mean dumb in a good way, big dumb loud. I'm too snobby with that. I have trouble with that. Like, yeah,
I
but
don't
you
know,
can
I'm a
enjoy
snob.
cliffhanger and shit, and I genuinely can't. And I think it's my deficiency. I can't have fun. Fun is
Yeah,
fun. Anyway, number
yeah.
6, Carrie. Quite high. Good movie. And as I said, I am a formalist. So, and I believe that Carrie, the filmmaking techniques have given more to the history of film than 1408. It's more put together than 1408. It's a good film. Number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah. I always
Carrie.
love when that happens, dude.
Yeah. For all the reasons you said, Brian De Palma is one of the better directors on this list, hands down. It's just a
Everyone
put
tried
together
hard.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
All
move
right,
on. Top 5.
I'm just going to do mine. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, The Mist. 4, Misery. 3, Stand By Me. 2, Dr. Sleep. 1, The Shining. It hasn't changed, so.
Yep, the only difference between same movies, but Dr. Sleep, I put at 4 instead of 2. So I go The Mist, Dr. Sleep, Misery, Stand By Me. And as it has been it has
Since
not been
episode 1,
taken
I
down,
believe,
the
yeah.
standing champion. I think there's only one film that even has the power to do it. But you're going to have to watch more episodes
watch
to
'em.
hear about
You
that.
have to find
you
a video
freaks.
version
You
somehow.
weirdos.
I guess we do those. Yeah, you could go to our
You
YouTube.
little-
you little piggies.
You little piggies. I'm John Travolta.
And we did get her
Yeah.
done. Abe,
Anyway.
because you're the keeper of the calendar, we're trying to do this more. Could you spoil some of our upcoming slate for folks?
Well, yes. As soon as this episode comes out, later this week, I believe, we're going to be coming out with a Spiel Boys. That's Tom and I. Tom from Gamefully and Employed and I talk about Spielberg, which is great. And we're going to be talking to The Terminal. We're going to get Tom Hanks on you, real greasy Tom Hanks on you. And after that, we're going to, of course, get the following Monday, a Star Trek The Next Futurama. So we're back to back in terms of our Gamefully Unemployed marriages. If you want to see where all the action is for that, make sure to check out both Gamefully Unemployed's Patreon and ours. Give each of us $5 and you get 100% of both
Spiel
of those
Boys and
shows.
Star Trek.
episodes.
That's right. Also,
but-
for reasons that we'll be getting into more explicitly very soon, this whole next month we're guesting the shit out of ourselves. So that same week, you can look for us on Dog Zone 9000, the official podcast of 1-900 Hot Dog, run by Sean Baby and Robert Brockway. And we'll be on Sif Pod, Secretly Incredibly Fascinating, which is Alex Schmidt's pod. And I'm gathering that Katie Golden now co-hosts as well, but I'm not sure. But we're also guesting on Creature Feature, fully hosted by Katie Golden. All our cracked pals. We're going to be on Hypecast this month, etc., etc. Yeah.
Even more news in late
Daily
May.
Zeitgeist. All the usuals.
Yeah. Daily Zeitgeist. Holy shit. Yeah, you're going to get a
Extras.
bunch of small beans all over the place. And the reason for that is because we're making a movie. As of this day, when this comes out on the Patreon, will be May 1st. And that means that our Kickstarter, our
it might be
crowdfunding
Seed and
has
Spark.
begun
It might be
for our movie
GoFundMe.
Papa
We don't
Bear.
know yet.
We don't know because we're about to do that this weekend. We're going to set that all up. But yeah, point is, look for more news in the Small Beans feed.
If you're at all
about our
interested
movie
in
Papa
the fact
Bear,
that we're
because
making an
it is-
independent film right now called Papa Bear. Yeah. If that piques your curiosity.
Yeah, me and this guy are basically co-wrote, co-directing
And editing.
the story
I
of
assume.
Michael. Semi-autobiographical. He found out that his dad's a gay furry, and he has to deal with that. And that's it's a great opportunity for us to support independent film. But more on that later. I'm sure you'll all be there. That's it, I think. For me.
Alrighty. Then we done.
All right. Great episode.
Bong.
And a handshake
We shake hands.
and a nod.
We turn.
and we walk away.
We both walk into the desert. The little wavy heat lines make our silhouettes disappear. We're dead. This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.